The villagers of Arowa often said that trouble did not always come with noise. Sometimes it came quietly, like the slow shadow of evening swallowing daylight. And in their small community, that quiet trouble had two names, Joshua and Jide. Everyone in Arowa knew the boys, knew their faces, their mothers, and their sad story. But what the villagers talked about the most was not their past or family background. It was their laziness, the one thing that tied the boys together stronger than blood. Joshua was born into hardship before he took his first breath. His father died months before he was born, leaving his mother alone with a baby she wasn't prepared for. She worked on farms, fetched water for rich families, sold firewood, anything to survive. Her only prayer was that her son would grow up to help her. But Joshua disappointed her very early. From the moment he could walk, he learned how to run away from brooms, from chores, from school, from any form of responsibility. He spent hours lying under trees, drawing shapes in dust, and waiting for his mother to call him for food. "Joshua!" his mother would shout almost every morning. "You better come and sweep this compound before I count to 3. Joshua would mumble from under the tree, "Mama, must it be now? Let the broom rest small." And then came Jide. Jide lived just 3 compounds away. Unlike Joshua, Jide had both parents alive and hardworking. His father was a respected cocoa farmer. His mother sold cassava and palm oil in the market. They had hopes for their son, big hopes, but Jide shattered them one idle day at a time. "Jide!" his father would roar from the doorway. "Stand up from that bed." Jide groaned, covering his face with a pillow. "Baba, the sun hasn't even risen well. Let the day start without me." He slept through mornings, avoided school like a plague, and always found ways to escape any work his parents gave him. If his father sent him to fetch firewood, he would drag his feet slowly until someone else did it. If his mother asked him to wash plates, he would forget until the plates piled up like a small mountain. One afternoon, his mother confronted him. "So you will sit there and watch flies dancing around these plates?" He shrugged. "Maybe the flies enjoy it, Mama. Why disturb them?" Joshua and Jide meeting was like fire meeting fuel. The first day they spoke, Joshua looked at him and asked, "You don't like work?" Jide laughed. "Work doesn't like me." They both burst into laughter, and that was the beginning. From then on, they spent mornings sleeping, afternoons eating, and evenings planning how to avoid whatever work their parents assigned. Arowa was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone's business. News traveled faster than wind, and soon the villagers were whispering, "These boys will amount to nothing. Their laziness will destroy them. Mark my words, Joshua and Jide will bring trouble one day." At first, their mothers defended them. "They are still children," Joshua's mother would say during market gossip. "Boys will grow out of it," Jide's mother insisted. But the problem was that the boys were not growing out of anything. They were growing deeper into it. Arowa had only one small primary school with cracked walls and teachers who loved discipline more than food. Every morning, the school bell rang loudly across the village. Children hurried from all corners except Joshua and Jide. Both boys hated the sound of the bell like it was a curse. Joshua would grumble, "Who even told them to ring that thing so early?" Jide would reply, "If I catch the person ringing it, Joshua would finish the threat lazily. "I will think about doing something to him." On days their mothers forced them out with sticks, they walked slowly like old men. A teacher once confronted them outside the gate. "Why are you late again?" Joshua yawned. "Sir, time is a social construct." Jide nodded seriously. "Exactly, sir. We are not slaves to the clock." The teacher nearly fainted from anger. Everyone in Arowa farmed. Even children helped during planting season. Joshua's mother woke before dawn to weed her small farmland. She begged Joshua to join her. "Joshua, please follow me to the farm. I need help." "Joshua, my body is weak." "Weak from what? Sleeping?" Joshua clutched his chest. Mama, sleep can also be stressful. Jide wasn't any better. His father tried to teach him farming, but all Jide did was slow him down. Hold the hoe properly, his father instructed. Jide whimpered, Baba, this thing is heavy. Is it heavier than your laziness? Honestly, Baba, I think they weigh the same. When Jide became a teenager, his parents tried everything to push him toward a better future. At the tailor shop, the tailor shouted, Hold the cloth, hold it. Jide sighed, Master, this needle is too sharp, it wants to hurt me. At the mechanic workshop, Jide, pass that spanner. Which one? They all looked tired. It's you that is tired. Joshua laughed at him each time he failed. Yet Joshua never tried to learn anything himself. He often said, My destiny is still loading. One day, God will shock all of you. There was a big mango tree at the center of Arowa, a resting place where travelers stopped and elders met to chat. But soon, the tree became known for something else entirely. Joshua and Jide's headquarters. Guy, this shade is sweet, Joshua would say, lying flat on the ground. My brother, even kings don't rest like this. One afternoon, two mothers approached Joshua's mother and Jide's mother. Your sons are misleading our children, one complained. They are teaching useless things, another added. The boys overheard from under the tree. Joshua snickered. Imagine, me, a teacher. Jide puffed his chest. They should pay us then. One evening, after the boys spent an entire day doing nothing, the village herbalist walked past them and shook his head slowly. He said loudly, Idleness is sweet in youth, but it becomes poison in old age. Joshua sat up slightly. Baba, do you have any herb that removes stress? The herbalist glared. If foolishness was a sickness, you too would need a full calabash of medicine. Soon, even the village king called a meeting. You too, the king said sternly, must you sleep everywhere like goats? Joshua bowed lazily. Your Highness, it is the weather. Jide added, and the environment. The king snapped, Get out of my sight. As the year passed, rumors began spreading that the village was attracting strangers. People whispered about footsteps in the forest, shadows at the river. One afternoon, an old woman walked by the boys and muttered, Two lazy boys, you are becoming the shadow of bad things coming to this village. Jide whispered, Joshua, did you hear that? Joshua waved it off. Forget her, she's just talking to the wind. But the villagers did not forget. These boys, they are a prophecy of disaster waiting to happen. And as the sun set that day, dipping behind the hills and casting long shadows across Arowa, an uneasy silence crept into the village. Something was coming. Something that would change everything. That night, as Joshua and Jide slept peacefully, unaware of the storm approaching, a group of masked men was already watching Arowa from the thick darkness of the forest. Their footsteps were silent. Their plan was deadly. Their presence was invisible, and the village had no idea what awaited it.
Morning in Arowa always began the same way. Roosters crowing, women sweeping compounds, men heading to their farms, and children hurrying to school with lunch bowls swinging in their hands. But there were two people who never took part in this daily rhythm. Two young men who slept like the world owed them endless rest. Joshua and Jide. By this time, they were no longer boys. They were full-grown men, strong in body, weak in spirit, and completely useless to their community. And Arowa village had gotten tired. Very tired. If the villagers ever forgot how lazy Joshua and Jide were, all they needed to do was walk to the big mango tree in the center of the village. Like permanent decorations, the two young men sat or lay flat on the ground from sunrise to sunset. Sometimes, Joshua snored loudly. Sometimes, Jide hummed a tune while playing a game with stones. But most times, they simply ate, slept, talked nonsense, and repeated the cycle. Children passed by on their way to school and whispered, "Look at them, the useless ones. Even goats are better," another child hissed. Joshua lifted his head once and muttered, "These small children don't fear elders again." Jide shrugged. "Leave them. When they grow up, they will understand the sweetness of rest." Adults shook their heads in disappointment. elders simply avoided them entirely. Yet, Joshua and Jide believed they were living the perfect life. "See how peaceful everywhere is," Jide said one hot afternoon, stretching like a lizard in the sun. "Hard workers don't enjoy life like this," Joshua replied proudly. They laughed, completely unaware that they were becoming the laughingstock of the entire village. Joshua's mother had grown thin from stress. Her back bent from years of working alone. She farmed, fetched firewood, washed clothes for people, and sold vegetables just to survive. Every time she returned home, she found Joshua sleeping, playing, or eating the food she struggled to prepare. "Joshua, help me with this firewood," she pleaded one evening as she struggled with the load. "Ah, Mama, I'm tired," he groaned without lifting his head. "From what?" she demanded. "From sleeping?" Joshua simply waved his hand and changed position. "God, why me?" his mother whispered as she wiped sweat from her face. Meanwhile, Jide's parents weren't any happier. His father watched other men proudly walk with their sons to farms, teaching them how to plant, harvest, and build a future. But his own son, Jide, was under the mango tree, usually competing with goats for shade. "Jide, come and help me in the cocoa field," his father said one morning. Jide yawned long enough to scare a bird off a branch. "Daddy, my body is weak today." "Weak from doing nothing?" his father roared. Jide stood and walked away slowly. "Let the weakness pass first." His father nearly collapsed from frustration. "I don't know who I offended in this life." At the same time, other young men in Arowa were rising. Some had finished secondary school and gone to the city to learn trades or start businesses. A few had even returned with motorcycles, clothes, and money. Whenever these hardworking youths visited the village, children gathered around them in admiration. "Ah, see how big he is now. He is working in Lagos. He built a house for his parents." But Joshua and Jide only hissed. "What are they bragging about?" Joshua grumbled one day as a boy on a motorcycle rode past, honking proudly. "Maybe he's just lucky," Jide replied. "But his luck is too noisy," Joshua added. They both scoffed, pretending not to feel the sting of jealousy tightening in their chests. Still, they told themselves, success does not need school, success does not need work, success will find us. They believed this lie until it became their comfort and their curse. One afternoon, a group of villagers gathered at the king's palace to discuss once again the problem of the two idle young men. One woman stood and said, "I don't want my children going near those boys. Laziness is contagious. They corrupt the minds of others." Another man added, "Yesterday, I saw Jide telling some small boys to skip school. He even taught them how to pretend to be sick." A third person shouted, "If they cannot help the community, at least let them stop spoiling our children." Anger filled the palace hall. The king, an elderly man with a wise but tired face, sighed deeply. "How many times have we warned these boys?" he asked. "Many times," the people shouted. "Then I will speak to them personally. One last warning." The next morning, palace guards found Joshua and Jide under the mango tree, of course. "His Royal Highness wants to see you," a guard announced. "For what?" Joshua asked suspiciously. "To greet you," the guard snapped. "Stand up and follow us." At the palace, the king looked at them with disappointment deep enough to fill the room. "My children, you are no longer boys. Your parents are suffering while you do nothing. You refuse school, you refuse farming, you refuse work. Tell me, what do you want to become in life?" Joshua and Jide looked at each other. Joshua shrugged. "Oh, we are still thinking." Jide scratched his head. "Life is not a race, Your Highness." The king leaned forward. "If you continue like this, you will bring shame and trouble to yourselves and this whole village." The boys kept silent. "Change your ways," the king warned, "before change comes by force." Joshua bowed his head. Jide nodded slowly. But as they walked back to the mango tree, they burst into laughter. "That old man talks too much," Joshua joked. "He thinks he can scare us," Jide added. They both scoffed, pretending not to feel the sting of jealousy tightening in their chests. That evening, the air felt different. The wind was stronger. Birds flew unusually low. Dogs barked for no reason. Even the crickets sounded louder. The villagers sensed something strange in the air, but could not explain it. They locked their doors early, prayed longer than usual, and slept with uneasiness in their hearts. And in the thick darkness outside the village, something moved. Shadows, figures, men in black clothing whispering instructions. They were not from Arowa, and they were not peaceful visitors. The robbers had been watching the village for weeks, studying it, planning, waiting for the right moment. And tonight was that moment. As the moon hid behind clouds and silence covered Arowa like a blanket, the strangers stepped into the village, quiet, swift, and deadly. Doors would soon break, treasures would soon vanish, chaos would soon erupt. But in the darkest corner of the bush path, one of the robbers pointed towards the center of the village and whispered, "Make sure no one sees our faces. By morning, everyone will suspect those two lazy boys." And then the robbery began.
Morning came to Arowa like a wounded animal, broken, trembling, and full of fear. Before the sun even rose over the hills, the first scream shattered the silence. A woman's voice rang out, "My yam ban! Somebody has emptied my yam ban!" Another voice followed, "My money is gone, all of it!" Then another, "My goats! Where are my goats?" Soon the entire village stirred. Doors flew open, men rushed out in confusion. "Who is shouting like that this early morning?" One man grumbled, tying his wrapper. Another snapped back, "Can't you hear that something is wrong?" Women wailed, children hid behind their mothers. The chaos spread like harmattan fire. Not one thief, not two, but a silent group that moved like spirits in the night. Every compound echoed the same cries. "They took my clothes! My food is finished! Everything is turned upside down! Even my pot of soup, gone!" Arowa had never witnessed anything like it. The king's messengers ran from house to house shouting, "Everyone gather at the palace! Let no one remain indoors!" A river of frightened villagers poured into the courtyard. Chief Alade stepped forward and raised his voice. "My people, something terrible has happened. No one heard footsteps. No dog barked. No night guard saw anything." The king, gripping his walking stick, added gravely, "This is more than robbery. It is an insult to our land." The crowd murmured, some in anger, some in fear. Then one man muttered loudly enough for others to hear, "This kind of thing, it must be an inside job." Another nodded, "Someone who knows the village very well." A woman shouted from the back, "Someone who is always wandering around doing nothing." A spark became a fire. Whispers merged into a chant. "Joshua and Jide, Joshua and Jide, Joshua and Jide." Voices rose. "They have no job. They know all corners of the village. They roam at night. They are always around trouble." Even those with no idea of the fact joined in. "They did it. I'm sure. We all know it." Joshua's mother gasped and fainted. Jide's mother fell to her knees. "God, please have mercy." But the storm had already begun. Joshua slept soundly, snoring lightly when his mother burst in, her voice choking. "Joshua! Joshua, wake up! They are calling your name!" Joshua sat up groggily. "Mama, who? Why are you crying? Just get up," she cried. "The whole village is accusing you." At the same moment, across the village, Jide's mother shook him violently. "Jide, stand up this moment." Jide rubbed his eyes. "Mama, which problem again? I didn't even go out yesterday." "Get dressed," she said, trembling. "We must leave this compound." But before they could take 5 steps outside, palace guards surrounded them. The head guard backed. "You too! His Royal Highness demands your presence. Now!" Joshua swallowed hard. "For what? What did we do?" The guard stepped closer. "Do not ask another question unless you want trouble." A crowd was waiting at the palace. When they saw the boys, voices erupted like thunder. "Thieves! Robbers! Criminals! You will suffer for what you did!" Joshua froze. Jide whispered, voice shaking, "God, what is happening?" Their mothers cried helplessly. Inside the palace, the hall was silent and tense. The king spoke first. "Joshua, Jide, the village has been robbed. Every person we questioned mentioned your names." Joshua's jaw dropped. "Us? Why?" Jide shook his head furiously. "We didn't do anything." Chief Alade slammed his staff on the ground. You boys are lazy. You roam around aimlessly. You know this village too well. Another chief added, confess now before things get worse. Joshua raised his hands desperately. Your Highness, I swear on my father's grave, we were sleeping. Jide nodded rapidly. Ask our mothers. We did not step outside. The lead police officer stepped forward, cold and stern. You fit the profile. No job, no responsibilities. Exactly the kind of men who become thieves or help thieves. The villagers hummed in agreement. Joshua's mother fell at the king's feet. My son cannot steal. He doesn't even have strength to carry firewood.
Jide's mother cried. Yes, he is lazy, very lazy, but not a criminal. But no one cared. The reputation had already judged them. The officer lifted his hand. Take them. Joshua's voice cracked. Wait, please listen. Jide struggled as officers grabbed him. We are innocent. Their mothers wailed, beating the floor with their hands. But the handcuffs clicked shut. The villagers jeered as the boys were dragged away. Good for them. Lazy boys. They finally got what they deserved. Their image had been destroyed long before that day. Months passed. No evidence, no witnesses, nothing in their homes. Yet villagers kept shouting, they must be punished. They did it. Don't release them. Under pressure, the police pushed for conviction. In court, the judge said sternly, 25 years in prison. Gasps filled the courtroom. Joshua burst into tears. Jide collapsed. Their mothers screamed until their voices disappeared. But the sentence stood unshaken. Prison changed them. Joshua became silent. Jide shrank in spirit and flesh. Night after night, Jide whispered in the darkness, Joshua, do you think anyone will believe us again? Joshua usually had no answer. Sometimes he said quietly, maybe God will speak for us one day. Years crawled by. Their mothers died. The village forgot them. Even birds stopped perching on the prison gates that held their youth. 25 years later, a guard opened the gates. Joshua Adeyemi, Jide Afolabi, you are free. Free, but broken. Their backs bent, eyes hollow, hearts wounded. As they walked toward Arowa, Jide whispered, do you think anything has changed? Joshua shook his head. I don't know. At the village entrance, a group of young people whispered loudly, look, those two, they have come back. The thieves? Can you imagine the audacity? The words pierced deeper than any prison wall. Joshua stopped walking. Jide's lips trembled. Another voice said, loud and sharp, the village robbers have returned. And their nightmare had only just begun. Jide and Joshua walked slowly through the village pathway that once brought them joy. Now, every step felt like carrying a heavy stone on their backs. They were free men, yet prisoners of their past. Villagers avoided their eyes. A woman hissed to her friend as they passed, look at them. Prison did not teach them shame. Her friend replied, I still believe they did it. Nothing can convince me otherwise. A man dropping firewood muttered loudly, God forbid I greet criminals. Children peeped from behind doors. One whispered, are those the men Mama warned us about? Another said, yes, don't let them see you. And they disappeared inside. Joshua swallowed hard. Joshua, is this how it will be? Jide forced a weak smile. What were you expecting? Trumpets? No one welcomed them, not even with a simple greeting. When they reached the empty spot where their mothers' houses once stood, silence fell like a curtain. Jide knelt, touching the dusty floor of what used to be their home. His voice cracked. Mama, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Joshua covered his face. She died believing I was a thief, Jide. She died without hearing the truth. Jide clenched the soil in his fist. The truth doesn't matter when your past is louder. For the first time in their lives, they truly understood loneliness. Not the loneliness of being idle or bored, but the loneliness of being forgotten. They sat on the broken remains of their mother's walls. Joshua whispered, we wasted everything. Jide nodded slowly. Our youth, our energy, our chances. And now, Joshua murmured, we have no one. Night fell. A cold wind swept across the silent village. The two men sat beside the ruins, staring at the dark sky. Jide wrapped his arms around himself. Joshua, do you ever think about what we could have been? Joshua nodded.
every day in that prison, every single day. Jide sighed deeply. Maybe if we had walked, maybe if we had listened, maybe if we had been better sons. Maybe, Joshua whispered, we wouldn't have been easy to accuse. Silence. Heavy, sharp, painful. The night itself seemed to whisper a truth they could no longer avoid. Years passed after Joshua and Jide returned to Arowa. Time, which had once moved slowly under the mango tree, now moved faster than they could keep up with. Their mothers were gone, their youth was gone. Their chance to earn respect, trust, or happiness had slipped through their fingers like sand. The villagers never forgave them. Even those who once played by their side as children now avoided them, unwilling to risk the shadow of suspicion or the stain of association. Every conversation, every glance reminded Joshua and Jide that their choices had consequences far beyond themselves. The two men continued to live in the village, not as proud young men, but as reminders of what laziness can do. They worked in small, meaningless ways, sweeping the village square, tending to overgrown gardens, but nothing could restore their reputation or the years they had wasted. On quiet evenings, they would sit under the dying mango tree, talking little, thinking much. They spoke of dreams they never chased, skills they never learnt, and the simple joys they could have shared with their families. And they understood, finally, that no one can reclaim time lost to laziness. No charm, no excuse, no hope of easy success can undo the life one refuses to build. The story of Joshua and Jide became a lesson for every child in Arowa. Work hard, learn, help others, value your youth. Laziness steals not only opportunity, but trust, love, and the very life you hope to live. Though they survived, Joshua and Jide were a cautionary tale. A life of regret written in the silence of wasted years. A life that could have been full of hope, but was instead marked by shadows. And in the end, the mango tree, once their throne of idleness, stood as a silent witness to the truth they had ignored all their lives. Effort today is freedom tomorrow.